So, Enadae, the very first song we're going to talk about is God, You're Amazing. Now, this is a ballad, one of the ballads I love on this album. As I said, I've had the privilege of listening to every song. Now, God, You're Amazing talks a lot about how wonderful God is based on what He's done. Do you really think we know or understand how amazing God is? Because the song captures it very well. Do you think this is something that we need reminding on?
I think that God is so indescribable. And if you listen to the words of the song, which by the way are from, the questions that God asked Job, there are answers that we still don't, the answers to those questions we still don't know, right? And I think that, the reason why it's written in the way that it's written, asking the questions that God asks, and then not answering the question because we don't know the answer to the question. God does. Where does darkness go? And are you as strong as God? When you ask all those questions and you don't have an answer, it then makes you realize just how awesome and amazing God is. I don't think that we'll ever know God in His fullness. I just feel like He's so awesome and so amazing and so indescribable that I hope the song gives, a bit of a glimpse of kind of how we should meditate on who God is and how awesome He is. But to your question, do we actually know? I think that is a question that will be answered throughout eternity, as we continue to grow and progress, we'll continue to grow in the knowledge of who He is.
So you've made mention of this scripture actually, and it stood out for me personally. In the song, the lyrics go, where does light come from? And where does the darkness go? That is so, I've never thought about that. But this song, God, You're Amazing, it talks about that. Can you talk about some of those wonders in which you've placed in this particular song?
These questions are questions that God asked Job, and they've come from Job chapter 38 to 41. So I just picked out things that really stood out, things that jumped at me, things like who gives intuition to the heart and instinct to the mind, right? That's a question that science will never be able to answer. That's a question that logic will never be able to answer. Who has enough wisdom to count the stars, right? That's something that nobody will ever be able to answer. What happens when the sun goes down? Like, we have an understanding, but where does darkness actually reside when there is light? Right? And I know that darkness is the absence of light, but where does the darkness go to? A lot of the writing was intentional because I didn't want to take the Bible out of context. I was very intentional about that. And I wanted to be able to write things that, in context, when you meditate on it, it could just be subconscious. So I've also been intentional about melody from that perspective. So asking those questions that we should ponder on. Where does darkness go? Who gives intuition to the heart or instinct to the mind? Like, those questions, as we meditate on them, when there is silence at the end, when we're unable to answer those questions, our reflection should then be, but God can, and He is amazing. He's worthy of praise because these are questions that He has answers to and we still don't.
So now I just want to ask, why this song for the first song?
I love it. It's one of 3 songs that I have listened to that has brought me to tears. So it's not because it's a sad song, but it's just upon reflection. I thought it was a good song to release first because it challenges views about the existence of God, right? So a lot of my music is sort of, I would say, hardcore Christian. But this song is more general. It's more introducing the idea of, have you thought about God? If you have, do you know who He is? For people who say that there is no God, I think that this song kind of challenges that view in a way. Have you thought about these things? Are there answers for these things? Do you know there's a God out there? And now that you ask these questions and you can't answer them, right? Maybe think about this idea that there probably is a God out there making things flow in the way that they do. They're not an accident. Giving water to parched lands, right? We can only hope. That's something that God is in control of.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, God, you're amazing.